Hi, I'm Nate Bonner. I'm the head knife maker for NHB Knife Works, and I'm also a chef. So first couple things I want to talk about is I've got our 3 basic shapes that we offer. One of them slightly modified, but we'll make this knife for anybody that requests it. Our general run here is paring knife, a petty or a utility, a lot of people call it, and the chef knife. This is my favorite knife of all time too. It took me about 4 tries to get this shape exactly where I want it, and you'll see it perform, and I absolutely love it. It's got this tiny bit of flexibility into it. Also, the weight on it's beautiful because it's so light. Anyway, I'll start with the paring knife. So I'm not a big fan of paring knives. That being said, I love little knives. So this is really not a paring knife. It's more of a bird and trout, great deboning knife for quail, duck. I mean, this really does a number on ducks. It's like a scalpel. That being said, we sell it as a paring knife because that's just what people know it as. And yes, you can peel with it and tourne and whatever else. But I mean, honestly, I use this knife for more deboning and things of that nature than anything else. So also the grind line on this, I was influenced by an old hunting knife that I had. So it's actually a partial hollow grind that goes into a flat grind. Which you don't see a lot, and I really am happy with the way that this came out. Also, just you can see that like swooping grind line in there. It's not a hard grind line, so I just think that aesthetically it's really pleasing. Also, it's got about another inch of the handle added onto it, and you can see that it gets a little bit fatter towards the butt of the knife. It's a gradual taper, but we do that so you have just something else in your hand, so this doesn't get lost in your hand because it's such a lightweight knife. So, with this, whether you're choking up on it and really just using the tip, like peeling off the breast from a carcass or something like that, or holding it way back here and using your index to get control. We're going to do some shrimp, and you guys will see that in action. And, it's just a really great small knife for small proteins. Also just mincing garlic and little things like that. I'll go into this guy. This is my shape for at home. I rarely cook for a lot of people when I'm not on the job, so this is, what I grab. I don't like pulling out giant cutting boards and giant knives, when I'm at my house. So this knife's cool. This is just a different take on our utility knife. Our standard one is maybe about an inch longer, a little bit wider. And this one is a hidden tang, which I did want to show you guys. This is sort of the new style that I'm getting into, and I love it. A lot of people think that you need an exposed full tang for it to be like a quality knife, and that's not the case. In fact, I think these come together so much more seamless. They're pressed. This is actually G10, the material that is that false tang, and I love the colors that I can put in there, and it just aesthetically I think adds something to the knife, but also makes it so that I can really trim them down. I love this handle shape, and I worked on it for a long time to get it where it is. So for this chef knife, I'm proud of the consistency that we get. However, on these knives, I can adjust the length of this knife. And so if somebody wants an extra long handle like this one has, which I love, because for fish, I mean, this is a go-to for my fish knife. But I mean, for all around just a little prep, like I said at home, I mean, this is what I bust out. I can also make them fatter, skinnier, as far as the grip goes for different people. So, it turns into a little bit more of a custom order. You have to actually speak to me and give me dimensions, but it's a lot easier to work with for custom knives without them being totally custom, and that was sort of really the base of our company was, trying to give somebody, a quality custom knife, a one-of-a-kind knife without the custom price or the hassle. So yeah, this is another step to get something if you want a specific handle, but that's why I'm kind of going into these hidden tang knives. Now the steel runs all the way down to right here, and there's not much space in between that G10 and the metal. So I mean, you're still getting a tang, and it's still a wonderfully put together, strong, sturdy knife, and it's almost like a little puzzle how it comes together inside. And again, if any of this separates or anything, we always warranty them. So this is kind of my new go-to, and it's sort of the style that I'm really getting into, and I'm loving the all wood and just simple contrast of colors. Now this guy is my workhorse. This shape took me a while to get right, and like I said, I think this was my 4th try on this particular shape. The handle, we gave some contoured, sort of, it's not heavily contoured, but it's definitely not straight, but that kind of forces your hand to choke up a little bit on the bolster. And I mean, that's really where it rides comfortably. It's right on that notch of wood. So But originally when we did these, we had nickel bolsters that were, you know, hand shaped onto there, and it just added unnecessary weight, I felt like, and that was one of the, you know, compliments that we got recently on these knives, is that they're just so light. You can cut with them all day, and they're so thin that sharpening is really easy and honing is really easy. You know, this guy's designed mostly for fruits and vegetables, and you know, you want to avoid cutting bones with this knife because of how thin it is. That being said, the heat treat on the particular batch we have out now is 61 for the Rockwell. So it's very hard steel. It's about 13, 14 degrees, very, very thin and very easy to hone, like I said. So this knife is, you know, this is what I use when I cook professionally. Without a doubt, this is in my hand most of the day. We also have some other shapes that are coming out now. We'll probably do another video later on. They're more industrial friendly knives. This is what, you know, I would use in my professional kitchen any day of the week, but you know, when it comes to like fish with bones, Deba knives, things like that, we have some new stuff coming out. I want to touch basically on you know, the difference between honing and sharpening, and a lot of people sort of get them confused, and they don't hone and they just sharpen, and you know, or they have somebody else do it for them, and it ruins the life of your knife, and it's expensive. So you know, honing is the maintenance of the edge, and the maintenance of the edge, yes, technically is sharpening on something like this. A lot of the times with the older, softer European knives, you know, what happens is the edge runs like this. Over time, it may shift one way, and then down the edge shift another way, and then shift back this way. Or the whole knife may just kind of curl over. Now, this is something you can't see. You'd have to look through a microscope to see that. But when you're trying to cut a perfectly straight line with something that's arced over, you're going to saw and punch through, and you know, it's going to act like it's not sharp, when in reality it is sharp, it's just curved. So using these sharpening steels you see everybody with, this one's ceramic, it's different, but the typical metal ones, and you do this, and then you just almost make your knife duller, really. In theory, what you're supposed to be doing is just straightening that edge back out. But abusing that too much, eventually it just goes away. So, you know, with something like this, I like, except, you know, typically you're trying to control too many movements at one time. And so you've got this up in the air, and you've got this up in the air, and to get everything lined up perfectly every time is almost physically impossible. I like these for like if I'm in a pinch, and I'll show you how I use my steel, is I just find my edge and I just literally drop it down. And I keep this stationary. This does nothing. And in fact, the more you just beat up your knife, the worse it's gonna be. So, I mean, really, really light, you know, coming off of it. And I'm always using backstrokes, and that's keeping it, I'm just razor sharp. You know, you want to feel it click in between every line of your fingerprint. And I don't know, with basic maintenance, it's like 3 minutes out of your day, you know. And if you maintain a knife like this, you'll never ever have to sharpen it. And you know, you get into something like whetstones, which the really high grits, you know, you're still bordering on the line of honing. This is such a smooth stone that I'll use this for maybe 4 or 5 passes every day, and I never have to touch these other stones, and I never ever have to worry about having a dull knife, because having a dull knife isn't safe. The more pressure you apply to things that you're cutting, and you have a slip or an accident, the more force is behind it, and that can land you in the hospital pretty fast. So using something like this and doing a couple of very simple passes on, you know, I would consider honing. And I mean, these stones are great. They're just super slick and super smooth. So if you have a dull knife, this isn't going to do anything. If you have a knife that is blazing sharp and you want to keep it blazing sharp every single day, just a few minutes of maintenance is all you really need. And it's not even a few minutes. Sometimes it's just a minute. So I'm going to start. I'm going to find my angle. And I am just gently riding the edge of this up and down. And just a few simple backstrokes just to line everything up. That's it. That little bit of maintenance was all I needed for a day's worth of cutting. And I'll do that usually before and after for about that long. I mean, maybe just a minute. And my knives will always be blazing sharp. I never have to worry about it. So that is honing. You can hone on a lot of things. The bottom of a plate, roll your car window down partially. The harder the surface, like frosty glass, works great. The ceramic steel works awesome for when I'm actually cooking and I don't have time to pull a stone out. I can just have this in my knife roller next to me on my cutting board, and a few strokes will get me through a few hours. And if you keep up with that, you know, you'll never ever have a dull knife, and you'll never have to send it somewhere or worry about ruining it on coarse stones. Definitely recommend practicing on a knife you don't love when you first get into using stones. There's some great videos out there, and we'll put some out there as well. So, last thing I want to talk about is the difference between stainless steel and carbon steel, which is something everybody asks about, and it's very confusing because a lot of knife companies throw out high carbon stainless, high carbon no stain, and you see carbon a lot, and people will buy knives that are carbon knives and think that they're stainless and put them in the dishwasher and then have them be rusty pieces of junk in a day. So, you know, what I use personally is all carbon steel, which means it is not stainless. Everybody seems to think there's a ton of maintenance that goes into it. It's really not. It's just, you know, care about your tools. The reason that I choose this steel over stainless steel or any of the stainless steel that we've used in the past and that we still use currently, which is awesome stuff like the Swedish Sandvik, is that it just never gets as sharp as this. And if you want to split tissue paper with your knife because it is so sharp, and you want to do the stupid knife cuts you can only do with an extremely sharp tool, then you pretty much have to have carbon steel. You know, there's really no getting around it. There are such knives as laminated, you know, stainless, round carbon. I just love 52100 and I love 1095, and you know, that's what we're using right now for our carbon. These are 52100. My new set that I made for myself is 1095. Now this will patina, and I just let this gradually happen. So I oil my knives every day. I clean them. I never let them sit around wet. You know, all you have to do is keep them dry, really. Let this slowly patina. It's going to turn this milky sort of gray into this dark cloudy gray, and that's it developing this protective barrier. It's almost like why they, you know, it is why they used to blue steel for guns back in the day. And you really want that protective coating on this. You can force the patina. I mix a little lemon juice and a little Dijon mustard. Wipe my blades down, let it sit for a minute, rinse it off, dry it off, and repeat that process, just like you're seasoning a piece of cast iron. And that will force a patina on your blade. You know, if you're like me and you use your knives every day, then don't worry about it because it'll naturally happen, and you're not going to let them sit around and get nasty. So, you know, the other thing is you definitely want to let it breathe. I do use these slap magnets, which really don't allow it to breathe. I think they're great, though, for, you know, carrying my knives from point A to point B. But, like I said, if you're going to just throw this in a drawer for 2 weeks, then it's probably not the steel that you want to get. You probably want to go stainless steel where you don't have to worry about it. You know, it's sort of splitting hairs, literally, like how much sharper you can get carbon than stainless. And it's the maintenance, I think, that's a little bit easier on the carbon. I've noticed that keeping carbon sharp is way easier than keeping stainless steel sharp. Not to say it can't be done, it just requires a little bit more effort. So, I mean, that's why a lot of professional chefs choose carbon over stainless. And, you know, I urge you guys to at least think about it, because I do truly believe that you get a far superior edge, you know, with something like this versus a stainless knife. And, you know, if you look what most knife makers carry and what most of us, you know, in the industry use, is going to be this style of steel. And not particularly this steel, this is the 52100, but, you know, any of that carbon steel that's like low or no chromium is going to be, you know, ideal. That being said, my last little tip from me to you is carry one of these bad boys, because you might need it. And that goes everywhere with me. So, and I've had to use it quite a few times. I have no feeling left in these thumbs. Right? So that's it. Thank you guys very much.